Welcome to our channel. Today we delve into the most fascinating horror movie villains whose stories chill and thrill. From cunning minds to supernatural beings, join us as we uncover what makes these characters iconic in the world of horror. Hannibal Lecter, the cannibalistic maestro of horror. Hannibal Lecter from The Silence of the Lambs stands out as one of the most sophisticated villains in horror movie history. A brilliant psychiatrist turned cannibalistic serial killer, Lecter's chilling presence redefines the boundaries of psychological horror. His interactions with FBI trainee Clarice Starling are as intellectually engaging as they are disturbing, showcasing his manipulative prowess and his ability to dissect the human mind. What makes Lecter particularly terrifying is not just his taste for human flesh, but his refined demeanor and sharp intellect, which he uses to probe into the psyche of his opponents. This blend of highbrow charm and brutal savagery creates a complex character that viewers both fear and are mesmerized by. Freddy Krueger, the Nightmare Weaver. Freddy Krueger of A Nightmare on Elm Street remains one of horror cinema's most iconic figures. Originating as a child murderer who escaped the legal system, Freddy's subsequent death at the hands of vengeful parents only sets the stage for his terrifying return as a malevolent spirit haunting the dreams of their children. His disfigured face and the infamous bladed glove are symbols of pure terror that tap into the primal fear of being attacked in one's sleep, where everyone is most vulnerable. Freddy doesn't just kill his victims, he terrifies them first, exploiting their deepest fears, making each nightmare uniquely tailored and disturbingly personal. The psychological dimension of Freddy's character adds a layer of depth that challenges the boundaries between reality and the dream world. This blend of real-world fears and supernatural elements makes Freddy Krueger a character that transcends the typical slasher villain, making him a perennial figure in the landscape of horror. His twisted sense of humor and penchant for dramatic flair only amplify his status as a nightmarish legend. Jigsaw, the mastermind of moral reckoning. Jigsaw, the central antagonist of the Saw franchise, stands apart from other horror villains due to his unique modus operandi. Born John Kramer, Jigsaw doesn't see himself as a murderer, but as someone who provides his victims with a chance for redemption. His complex traps are notorious not for their brutality alone, but for the moral dilemmas they impose, forcing victims to confront their ethical failings and physical limits. Each trap is meticulously designed to test the resilience, willpower, and sometimes the cruelty of his subjects, reflecting his twisted vision of justice. Jigsaw's backstory, involving personal tragedy and a terminal cancer diagnosis, sheds light on his transformation into a figure that embodies his belief in the value of life through the lens of suffering and sacrifice. This philosophical depth makes him a particularly intriguing figure in horror, as he challenges both the characters and the audience to reflect on the value of life and the consequences of choices. Unlike typical slashers who kill indiscriminately, Jigsaw's intent to save his victims by forcing them to face their darkest selves makes him a complex and memorable villain. Michael Myers, the embodiment of pure evil. Michael Myers from Halloween epitomizes the relentless, enigmatic horror villain. His story begins on a fateful Halloween night when, as a 6-year-old, he inexplicably murders his sister. This act of incomprehensible violence marks the beginning of his mythos as an embodiment of pure evil. What makes Michael particularly terrifying is his lack of motive and his expressionless facade, symbolized by his iconic white mask. This absence of emotion and reason makes him an unpredictable and unstoppable force. Over the decades, Michael Myers has haunted the fictional town of Haddonfield, Illinois, emerging silently to kill again with supernatural resilience and singular focus. His near-supernatural abilities, coupled with his human origins, create a chilling dichotomy that has kept audiences enthralled for generations. Michael's almost supernatural ability to survive any attempt on his life adds to his legend, painting him as a nightmarish figure who might never be stopped. His minimalistic yet powerful presence has made him a lasting icon in the horror genre, representing an undying evil that lurks in the shadows of ordinary life. Pennywise, the shape-shifting terror of Derry. Pennywise, the central terror of Stephen King's It, is more than just a creepy clown. He is a shape-shifting entity known as the Dancing Clown, whose true form is as mysterious as it is terrifying, reflecting the deepest fears of those he preys upon. Residing in the sewers of Derry, Maine, Pennywise reappears every 27 years to feed on the town's children by exploiting their individual phobias. His ability to manifest as one's worst nightmare allows him to manipulate and isolate his victims, making his attacks intensely personal and psychologically terrifying. Pennywise's interactions are characterized by a blend of childlike whimsy and menacing threats, creating a dissonant terror that unsettles both characters and viewers. The cyclical nature of his appearances adds a layer of inevitability and dread to the story as generations of Derry's residents grow up with the legend of the monster lurking beneath their town. Pennywise's iconic status is reinforced by his horrifying visage and the psychological depth of his terror, making him a standout figure in horror that embodies the very essence of fear. Samara, the vengeful spirit from the cursed videotape. Samara from The Ring embodies the modern ghost story with a digital twist. Her story begins tragically. Born to a mother obsessed with having a child, Samara's mysterious abilities and the subsequent neglect and abuse she suffers lead to her untimely death. Her spirit, however, does not rest. It seeks vengeance through a cursed videotape that promises death to those who watch it within 7 days. Samara's pale face and long dark hair emerging from a television screen have become iconic images in horror cinema. Her method of haunting via a videotape taps into contemporary fears of technology and the uncontrollable spread of information, making her a particularly relatable specter in the digital age. The countdown to her appearance adds an element of inescapable doom, heightening the suspense and terror as her victims desperately seek a way to break the curse. Samara's chilling backstory and the modern mythology surrounding her curse make her one of the most unforgettable and terrifying figures in horror movies, merging traditional ghost story elements with modern media fears. Ghostface, the legacy of Scream's masked killer. Ghostface from the Scream series is unique among horror villains for being a legacy character carried on by different individuals across the franchise. The mask and voice changers, simple yet effective, provide anonymity and a singular identity that transcends the individual behind the mask. Each Ghostface adopts this persona to commit their spree of terror, but each brings their own motives and backstory, reflecting dark facets of obsession, revenge, and critique of horror genre tropes. The character's meta-awareness of horror conventions allows for a blend of black comedy and genuine scares, engaging the audience in a cat-and-mouse game that questions the rules of survival in slasher films. This self-referential approach revitalizes the genre with each installment, keeping the narrative fresh while adhering to the beloved formula. Ghostface's role as both a familiar icon and a mirror to the evolving landscape of horror makes him a continually relevant and chilling antagonist, representing the genre's ability to adapt and comment on its own history and future. Thanks for joining us as we explored the darkest corners of horror cinema. If you loved diving into the minds of these unforgettable villains, don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment with your favorite horror villain. Stay tuned for more spine-tingling content.